Russ Lovegrove, our guest, he's been in town for the design show, a fabulous design show, didn't you think?
Great, absolutely great. Very concentrated, very high quality, and a lot of visitors. I was very impressed by that.
And do you drink water out of that bottle?
I do. And my parents, have the original ones, and they still refill it after 11 years. They can't throw it away.
Is there a wall of those somewhere?
In the Morimoto, yes, the Morimoto restaurant I did with Tadando in New York. You can go, there's 15,000 bottles on a wall, all illuminated. And you wouldn't know it's a bottle, it just sort of...
Where does that process start in your brain, the bottle process?
The bottle, well, that's all the bottle is a celebration of what it contains. And most bottles are industrial throwaway things. And
preferably Scotch.
well, you can fill it with a vodka or something and nobody will know. No, it starts as a celebration and a reverence for water. And if you see the bottle without the water, it feels cheap, it feels really disposable. When you put the water in, it's like solid water. So it's a celebration of that. Really.
It's also very tactile, that bottle. It feels good in your hand and it looks good.
Yes.
And there's something about that with design.
Well,
you want to touch it or maybe run your hand over it.
Well, a lot of things we use in life.
Or turn it on.
Yeah, well, when you drink from a cup, you don't look at the cup, do you? So you drive a car, you don't look at your car. So there's a polysensorial, a second level of the way we live with cutlery, which is more about tactility or the use of your other senses.
Sure.
It's not just the visual world.
For the elders in the audience who remember the Sony Walkman, what was your part in that?
Well, it was first developed in the late 70s, and I came on board at the beginning of the 80s. I was working in Germany for the company that was doing all of that, very famous company. And I got the job.
Was that Frog?
Yeah, Frog Design, in the Schwarzwald. And basically my job was to push and pull it into any way it could go. So I looked at reducing materials. I made one with the clip. Then there was the waterborne, the sport version. So I worked on a kind of research of where that product could go.
Right.
That was, and I also worked on the first Apple computers at that time. I mean, what a job for a 24-year-old. It was amazing, really.
The first Apples.
Yeah, I'm not as old as I look.
Steve Jobs, talked to him ever?
Yeah, absolutely. Came to the studio at that time. Yeah,
because he's very hands-on. My understanding certainly was very hands-on, and let's hope he'll continue to be. Well,
and Johnny Ive, I mean, they put the right team together. I mean, it's a great story, really.
So you sit in the supernatural chair and with your laptop, and you drink out of the tiny water bottle,
it's a bit boring in a while,
and you check your watch, and it all has something to do with you. Supernatural chair. Tell me about that.
Well, I always say that I'm like a sort of drinks machine. I'm in there. I know what I'm going to do. So in fact. I'm like a coffee, sugar, no milk. You just press the button and my design comes out because I'm always pre-thinking about it. So the Supernatural chair is half the weight of its nearest competitor. It uses gas injected in it to lighten the polymer. It's incredibly comfortable, and because of its lightness, old people and young people can stack it. So it's one of these things which is eternal, and the holes which are in it look funky. They look like they're designed, but actually it's just there to reduce material. As you know. Exactly,
but the trick is that it looks like it's not comfortable. But the point is, it is comfortable.
That's the trick.
I love that. No, it's very interesting. Issey Miyake, the clothing, what's he like?
He's a fantastic man.
He's probably your pal.
Yes, he is, and you could fall into him. His face is so engaging. It's like if you were to meet Clark Gable or something. His eyes are so bright. He has that Gable pencil mustache. His eyes never leave you, and a phenomena. Because for me, he is the great designer in a sense, because he invents the technologies to make the clothes. The shops are all designed by his team, all the PR, the whole thing, and it's the most complete creative idea I've ever seen.
And the Issey Miyakes I've been able to afford, I can still wear 10 years, 20 years down.
Exactly.
They just have longevity, which is rather important.
I have an Issey Miyake skirt, which actually comes with trousers.
So do I.
Do you?
Yes.
I thought you had the trousers.
I have the trousers too, but I have an Issey Miyake skirt. Sits low.
Yeah,
on the hip.
I know.
Really? Well, we'll talk.
Yeah, well, I mean,
The urban bike.
yes.
Do you ride it?
Yes, it took me 8 years to do that bike. Can you believe that? Not because I'm slow, it's just the company I
No,
took.
but much goes into a bike, I'm sure, because the pedals, for one, you don't want it to be too hard up a hill. Do you do that part?
Oh yeah, you do the whole thing.
The whole thing.
That's made out of carbon fiber, so it's lightweight. And you can see it's got a direct drive. There's no chain. So you don't get your legs dirty or anything.
Right.
And also the hole means you can hang it on a wall because the handlebars fold. So you can put it on the wall like a sculpture, really.
So that's a unisex bike?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Comes in different colors.
Yeah, and you see the angle. It means that it's not a lady's bike without the beam.
Right.
And it's not a man's bike with that beam. So it's not easy to produce something like that where both genders feel comfortable with that idea.
Exactly. And of course, if you hate riding bikes, you can hang it on the wall as art.
Yeah, and often, you can resell these things for more than you paid for it. It's absolutely true. you know. No, if it's designed by a famous designer or creative, you can sell it for more
Of
through
course. Well, you've worked with Herman Miller,
Yes.
the Herman Miller people, and other famous ones. Is there one collaboration that still thrills you or you're looking forward to, collaborate with Bono or something?
Yeah, it's funny because I'd love to work with, there was Hilary Hahn, the great violinist I met some years ago in Europe, and I thought I'd love to design her a violin, for example. Because, and it would take me to these wonderful places to learn. Design is about an education, and you would not know that a Stradivarius can be completely taken apart and put back together again. I mean, it's a learning curve about how acoustics work, how it's played, how to initiate those projects, or to do an amazing guitar for Jimmy Page or Eric Clapton or something, and get a friendship out of that just
Very
through
much.
this, and maybe auction it for charity. So it's not even about me or him, it's about two creatives coming together. So yes, I'd love to do that, and I mean,
And to think if you had a Stradivarius and a Testa-Rossi or one of those, how they sound that much, a violinist will be able to tell you, or a cellist, that the minute you pick up the bow and put it on that instrument,
Exactly.
When you're playing a Strad,
Yes. Yes, exactly.
even if you were blindfolded and didn't have any idea. It's not a student violin.
Yeah, well, somebody I work with in London, Peter Shepherd-Skid, he's one of the great virtuoso violinists of the world, and he has a Strad. And he's played it in my studio, and he can change the sound through the shape of his body. He can play like Paganini, and the violin he had was used by Paganini. And he can move it down, and he can change his body posture through yoga and change the way he squeezes the violin. It's incredible.
I had the pleasure of spending a bit of time with Isaac Stern.
Gosh.
And I played violin as a child. Not nearly as well as Isaac Stern, so mine's in the case. But we had a discussion about what he wraps his violin in and how he changed what he wraps his violin in when he puts it away as he became a better musician. And mine was wrapped in a tea towel that my grandmother had embroidered. But as I got to be a better violinist, I wrapped it in silk.
So you play the violin?
Not that well anymore.
Hmm.
There was a day, but perhaps we won't go there. The solar tree.
Yeah.
The solar tree. Tell me about the solar tree. Solar
that's
tree
cool.
and solar tree 2.
All the solar stuff. Well, I'm a big advocate of anything that's non-fossil fuel using. I think we should, as a designer, if you become known, and you should become a leader of some pretty sound values. And the environment, we need to look after our environment. It's all we've got. All this stuff that we pump into the atmosphere does not go into space. It hovers. On a 1 meter sphere, the ocean is 1 millimeter deep, and the sky is 1 millimeter deep. There is nothing, and we keep pumping this stuff out. So in a way, we need to develop alternative energy systems, but we need to find a language for it so that people find it cool and embrace it. I haven't seen an electric car yet, for example, that represents that change, that paradigm shift. The solar tree, I've thought, well, how do you get the idea of solar into society? And street lighting is an obvious one. And it's off-grid, which means you can just plop it there. It charges up, and at night it gives you light. So it means that you can sit around the base late at night and read a newspaper or something, or maybe later you could recharge your telephone or your laptop. It becomes a social meeting point. And you know, how amazing cities like Vancouver would look, the message they would give to the world, seeing these fab sort of tree-like structures.
Well, we're a city of glass towers, as you know, and green space and glass towers, but as you see the marriage of science and architecture and industrial design, and one of your benches, that aluminum beautiful
Oh, yeah, yeah. No, if you could
bench,
put it all together.
All together.
Wouldn't that be great? You know, and you need to find an enlightened place with an enlightened politics, an enlightened mayor and people, or people who in business, they just are philanthropic and they really want to put this back into society, you know. I mean, wealth, what is the wealth? What is the collective wealth? So in cities like, you know, Vancouver, which is an extraordinarily beautiful place, even in the rain, you know, why not brighten it up with these kind of things?
Sure,
You know?
and make, as you go through, you're not startled by the porta potty. Do you know what I mean? Because you can make a great-looking porta potty. You can.
Yeah, of course. You know, I mean, it's funny because you talk about developing business. You know, I know some important people in India, and we talk about how to develop, you know, a lavatory, for example, that is made from recycled polymers. It's not plumbed in. It's just whatever it is. You know, you could sell tomorrow. You could sell at least 1 billion of those with a little sort of 10-cent profit.
Right.
You know, and everybody can do well. So it's not it's not about just designing cool stuff. You know, it's about a little bit of Robin Hoodism. You sort of take from the rich and you give to the poor. You give back to society some way. So, yeah, I mean, I'm really interested in that idea of participating in, you know, how to take those modern technologies and bring them in to society. Solar-covered car, I mean, can you imagine?
No, and I can imagine an aerodynamic, beautiful electric car, though.
Yeah, I'd love to do
coming to a showroom near you.
Yeah.
If I give you this watch back, will you give me some of your speakers, your musical speakers you designed?
No, because they're £70,000.
What?
Yeah, they're a fortune.
They're £70,000. Well,
actually, we give you one, and you buy one, and we give you one free.
I'd have to drive it. You know, I mean, not happening on my watch, but they're magnificent.
Yeah.
What are they made of?
Oh, they're made from superform aluminium, and they're filled with foamed particles of carbon, and they're the best sound ever created. It's not me saying that. That's the industry. When you stand next to them, you don't know where the sound comes from. It makes you cry.
My.
Yeah.
And let me guess, they're light.
No, they're not.
They're
not. They take about 4 people to lift them.
Because light has gone through this conversation.
Look.
This is light, you're light.
Yeah, but Fanny, one of the ideas of doing those is the fact that everybody's walking around society now with headphones in, isolating themselves, getting run over on the street because they're just out of society. What about sitting in a room with some friends, sharing the music? I mean, I don't want to get too philosophical about that, but that's lost. And you know, they might sound expensive, but people spend more on a car, and you can get so much more out of something like those speakers, and there's only 100 pairs ever made. So, you know, there's a rarity value. One set was just sold for double that in auction in Austria, so there's no risk, actually. It's an investment.
Do they sell them at Inform?
I'm working on it.
I bet you are. Okay.
I'm sure Nancy and Nielsen.
One of the joys of this watch is you can pull it off, or will it wreck it?
Don't do that. Do not. I'd love to give it to you.
I know you can't.
But I'm not.
I know how it is.
But maybe I'll give you something else.
I'd like it in black.
Can I give you something more valuable than that?
Of course you can.
I will. I'll do you a drawing before I leave and drop it in. Can I do that?
Yes.
Yeah?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
I thank you.
Hey, Fanny, that was wonderful.
Nice to meet you.
Lovely.
Ross Lovegrove, world-renowned industrial designer, living in London, born in the Wales.